Before the show starts, again, just like to say a big thank you to the sponsors, Air Canada Cargo, ATC Aviation, Bombelli, Cool Dolly and Cool Storage Solution, Etihad Cargo and Sarco Airport Equipment. Thank you all so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners. Here we are again, another session at the Pharma Digital event. And I've got a hat trick of professionals here. So we've got one from each important sector. So I'd like to introduce them now. And firstly, you've got Niels van Namen, okay, who's the EVP Global Healthcare CEVA Logistics. So Niels, lovely to have you on board.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. And then we've got A.Bahadır BÜYÜKKAYMAZ, who's the Special Cargo Manager with Turkish Cargo. Bahadır, lovely to have you on board.
Hi, how are you, Chris? Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
Very good, very good. And then lastly, but by no means least, we've got Guillaume Crozier, who's the DVP Operations and Product Development with Dnata, based in Dubai. So Guillaume, nice to have you on board, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Chris, Niels and Bahadır. Looking forward.
Yes, indeed. Right, lads. Now, we've had some wonderful Mondays over the last 3 weeks. And, you know, lots of positive news, and everybody now should be a little bit more excited and more positive about what's going to happen. So we as an industry, we've got to be careful because we've got the eyes of the world looking at us. We've got to make sure that everything and every challenge that comes now is dealt with professionally. And I know from dealing with the three of you that we're going to get a good insight into how professional those processes and measures are, well, how good they are and how grounded they are in place. So what I'd like to do firstly is, Niels, if you can just give us a quick introduction about yourself, what you do, and how the last 6 to 8 months of this pandemic has affected you and the business that you're working for.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, I will. So good day, everyone. And my name is Niels van Namen, and I work with CEVA Logistics as the Global Head for Healthcare. And that's indeed, there's been a lot of change over the last year. And I'm in healthcare for the last 25 years of my career. I started when I still had hair, and worked in different sites. So worked in the pharma labs and with the CROs, but also worked indeed in manufacturing and supply chain. So I've seen the world change over the last decade or two, but most of the change I've seen really is in indeed the last 6 to 8 months, to your point, Chris. So not alone in my private life, right, where I'm not sure about you guys, but where everyone in your family and within your friends, right, they kind of now understand, okay, I now understand what supply chain and logistics is really about, right? That is not something you just do on top, and which is a utility which is always available, especially on the criticality of things like -80, that people never considered the implications. So that's, I think a lot of people in the world really became aware of supply chain, the security aspects, the complexities of it. And I think that's really interesting. I think because it is really important as far as I'm concerned. We're the key of making sure that products get delivered.
Yep.
And we keep the integrity of the product. Business-wise, I'm representing CEVA Logistics. Many people will know it. Since a year and a half now, we're part of the CMA CGM group, and again, there's a lot of investments that we're doing, also in in upgrading the cold chain environment. So we've seen a lot of change, and also the COVID vaccine distribution. It's very ironical, but in a way, we'll expedite further all the solutions we're bringing to the market. So that's really how it affected me in the personal life, but also in the business life. We're seeing that we're going to play a key role in making sure that these products make it to the market.
Exactly. Thank you very, very much, Niels. And Bahadır, same question to you, just a little bit of background and you know, how things have affected you in the business.
Yeah, my name is a little introduction about myself. My name is A.Bahadır BÜYÜKKAYMAZ. I've been with Turkish Airlines for more than 8 years. I work as a special pharma product manager, and I deal with a lot of quality issues, GDP regulations, all of the entertaining stuff for pharma, audit, quality, trainings, and so far. And we are a CEIV certified airline. And for the last 6-7 months, we have worked really hard, and we moved a lot healthcare, life sciences products all around the world. We helped the entire globe. So that's it about me and my company. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Bahadır. And Guillaume, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Guillaume. I've joined Dnata in 2011. It's my 9th birthday this year. Been through a couple of roles from the business field, very much hands-on, going through a real certification process. I'm sure we're going to touch on later. Now in charge of the operational performances across the Dnata network for both ground handling and cargo handling, and also in charge of product development / innovation. So very exciting. And if I'm just focusing on the last 6 months, it has been an amazing time for everyone, for sure. And a lot of shift actually in terms of focus, in terms of priority, from the real ops performance, a bit lagging, reactive, to actually a new pace, a new world, try to adapt, try to understand, and try to adapt. A difficult reality in terms of restructuring, but also fantastic opportunity, creating a sense of urgency. Yep. Where people listen to in a different way, and where we as stakeholders do feel and touch our responsibility even more, which is all motivating. So that's it for now.
Okay, brilliant. Now, guys, I think all of you touched on the fact that cargo and supply chain and logistics is now being appreciated and understood, and in fact, people are more interested in it than they ever have been before. Now, with that in mind, and also with the fact that pharma isn't new to our industry, you know, we've got a lot of foundation and background, and all of you, I think all of you mentioned CEIV and GDP. So what I'd like to do now, firstly, and I'll probably come to you, Niels, because for obviously for those that are in the industry, they know the steps that we've got recognised and represented here with the three of you, but we're getting a lot of people now tuning in who have got nothing to do with aviation. So for them, basically, you've got the pharma companies who work very closely with freight forwarding organisations who have specialists within their business who focus on pharmaceuticals, which is like yourself, Niels. Now, the forwarding community, they then make a decision as to which carrier they're going to use, and the carrier obviously has got contracts and agreements with a handling agent. So in principle, Niels would be given the business. Niels would be given the business to Bahadır, and Bahadır would then be getting it handled from Guillaume. So if we keep that sort of storyline in motion. Now, Niels, as far as CEIV and GDP is concerned, can you just give an outline as to how important those standards are for the industry?
Yes, I will. And maybe let me do one step back. And again, I appreciate there's more people on that might be asking themselves, okay, what are all the abbreviations? So I'm in healthcare for the last 25 years, and at the heart of what I do, at the heart of my passion, is making sure that we all make healthcare, that's devices, it's pharma products, it's diagnostics, it's all the things we see now, accessible and affordable for all the people in the world. And so if we start zooming in now, and again, there's a lot we're going to talk today about specifically the air freight part. And again, there's the first mile, the final mile, there's the ocean freight, all the other parts we're probably not going to really zoom into today. But when we're making medicines, right, we are actually being asked by the different regulatory bodies like the FDA, but also in Europe, EMA, and similar in APAC and other parts of the world, that are really asking us, all of us as players in that value chain, one question: are you in control? Right? Are you in control of security? Are you in control of keeping your products within the temperature ranges? Right? And we all know that some of the products, when that might be 2 to 8, if they freeze, they can even be harmful. Right? So there's a big interest of making sure we keep the integrity of the product. And we keep it in control. Make sure there's no pilferage, there's no theft, there's no tampering around. That's all within the responsibilities of the shippers and us as players in the value chain. So since many years, and there's different regulations, and one of the key ones is GDP, that was renewed and refreshed in 2013. When you read all the chapters again, it's really, are you in control? Are you doing, and are we learning from each other, right? And I think that is where the key change comes. And I think IATA came up with a great initiatives as well on the CEV, making kind of double sure, right? That we all behave to the same standards and we all understand the way it is. I think what changed now, and there's a competitive market out there. And yes, I've been working with Guillaume, A.Bahadır, and all of the peers. And we do that for many, many decades already. So what changes now is, in a way, the urgency, right? For all of us to work as one team. And one team, and it's not just CEVA being audited, right, or having a CIV certification, or Turkish Airlines. I think we indeed are now finding ourselves all on this island where we need to work together. Actually, we're all on the same ship, and that's now the next challenge, I believe. So we all understand we need to have our quality management systems, our SOPs, our work instructions, that we all work within our span of control. But our span of control is actually getting broader, and we need to see, I think, that we're all in one span of control instead of each of our own. So that's, I think, where the big change will come over the coming time, that we as industry partners really need to make sure we are partners and not competitors.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very valid and well put. And it's this collaboration and caring that's been so positive as a result of the pandemic. Now, Bahadır, we just touched there. One of the things that's a problem at the moment, and today as we're doing this podcast session, we don't actually know what we don't know. So there's lots of unknowns that have to be decided, the volumes, etc. So it's very difficult. But coming back to Niels's point about control, once we have that clarity, then obviously you have to make sure the competence is there. Then we have to make sure the compliance is there, and then hopefully that leads to control. So from the carrier perspective, how has your environment and your responsibilities changed as a result of requirement from the farmer and the forwarder who've started with the specialization, and then you've got the certification? How has that changed the whole dynamic for you as a carrier?
Well, we are holding again CIV certifications, both Istanbul hub operation and as an airline. And through our ground handlers, we are certified most of the stations as well. And again, I was running this project 3-4 years ago with IATA. And as soon as we heard this project in the market, we applied. Because back then we were in the new terminal in Istanbul. We moved in there 2015. So we invested a lot in terms of infrastructure, facilities. So we wanted to return some investment. So that's why we applied for CIV project. And then we were certified almost 3.5 years ago. And right before the pandemic, we were recertified. So, and then again, we learn a lot from the CIV projects, because I believe in that the CIV is more air cargo oriented program. GDP mostly applies to distributors, pharma companies, wholesalers, but CIV is specifically designed for air cargo industry, and it covers all of the aspects of EU GDP guidelines, plus, for example, tarmac operation. And loading the aircraft, unloading the aircraft, maintain the temperature within the aircraft. So it's another big benefit. And again, I believe that it raises the bar in the whole air cargo industry, quality bar, operational efficiency, and then once you are certified, it's not a lifetime program, and you have to renew yourself. You have to believe in continuous improvement, and then less complaints, less temperature deviations, and more profit for the company. So we benefit again at the bottom. We benefit a lot. We learn, and then we will continue for CIV program.
No, very, very good. Really appreciate that. Now, you've already started to transport some vaccines, some of the Chinese, the Sinovac, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, all those experiences and lessons, I'm assuming that you're keeping a record of what you're doing and how and any challenges or risks, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to that afterwards. Now, Guillaume, with regards to you now, almost taking the baton, from the boys above. Okay, with all of those standards, with CEVA, with various other contracts and SLAs. Okay, one of the points that was mentioned there about the tarmac and potential, temperature excursions for areas that have to be handled with extreme temperatures, it's going to be really, really crucial. And people don't realize, when they're on an aircraft, as they're waiting to come off, if there's cargo below, as soon as that door is open, the temperature and it just goes, so the speed and the capability and also the equipment. So do you just want to elaborate how well you deal with those particular challenges?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. As far as we are concerned, so just a word on GDP CEVA, we started our certification campaign or exercise already 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a strategic decision made for all our network. And today we have more or less 30 premises across the network. And between GDP and CEVA, we have more or less all the premises certified, and we are finalizing as we speak this exercise. So I'm absolutely joining Niels and A.Bahadır in what they've said between keeping control, also raising the bar. I like it very much. The continuous improvement loop, very key. And also it's creating some good ties between all of us as stakeholders. Because when you go through some challenges, you go through some CAPA, corrective action plan, preventive action plan, you need to think with everyone. And you need to look at that from a full end-to-end process viewpoint, which brings me to your question, Chris. When it comes to from the warehouse to the plane, of course, we look at that very carefully. When we think about the time out of refrigeration, I think this is one of the KPI we look at as a ground handling agent, and definitely this portion from the warehouse to the plane or from the plane to the warehouse is critical. Various scenarios, there is no one single magic answer. It's about understanding the full process and also incorporating some interesting criteria. If you have your freighter parked just next door to your warehouse, the freighter parking is just spot on in front of the warehouse. This creates a fantastic context to go straight from the cool room till the loading place. And I think this is something we already try to work on to make sure from an airport a parking position management viewpoint, we can organize that in a smart way. Then when it comes to long transportation time, of course, you think about technology. I think we were one of the first handling agents really using a cool dolly in Amsterdam. It was a few years back. We've renewed that experience recently in Singapore. And we do believe that cool dolly is going to help us. They will not fix the entire challenge, to be clear, when you think about big volume, big scale, full freighter to be handled, but that giving some top up, which are really interesting. Then I think we need also for such a scale, and I'm going potentially too specific now already, but I think this is what we want to speak and tackle. We should think simple and very robust in terms of process, and look at the less breakpoint as possible. So if you have a refrigerated truck, we can go to the airside, take all the ULD and straight to the plant. Of course, with all of us as SMEs, bringing soft skills, working on planning, assurance, follow-up, just to name it, just without really deteriorating the value proposition, but just bringing the real solution straight, as quick as possible, and with as less a breaking point as possible. So we think as well about that. And then you have various technology opportunities, all gonna depend on the temperature range we're gonna have to manage from -70 up to +2, +8. You have very efficient thermal blanket solution as well, which are less technologic, but as efficient, and all of this. So we are using that already. We get prepared to face the big challenge of volume if we have that, if the capacity in the air gonna create that challenge. And yeah, that would be my answer on that question.
Okay, very good. Now for anybody listening, that's a nice smooth chain. Now, what I'd like to ask any of you in any order, so anybody feel free to jump in on this one now. You mentioned about continual improvement. One of the things that I find so positive about parts of our business, and that other parts are also then adopting and becoming a similar part of the same culture, is about the self-assessments, about the continual checking, internal audits, zone management, spot checking, the way, Guillaume, I mean, I've been to your facility many times, but the way the blankets are stored in a cooling area, so that they're already prepared. All of those spot checks and self-assessments. I'd just like you to now just to comment on how important it is that you're continually doing these checks and these process reviews and the training and the assessments, briefings, etc. If you can just elaborate on that. Anybody feel free to jump in.
Maybe allow me, because I'm just thinking about something here. I think how important is it? No brainer. But how important is it that every one of us do it? Not only few QA people, but the frontline staff. I mean, who is doing it? And also, when do you do it? Do you do that from 8 to 5, or do you do that on a weekend? Do you do that on night shift and stuff like that? This has to actually really represent 24/7 operation life. And we need to try to sample what's going on at all the time. So this is the only way to collect as good fact as possible to really then work on continuous improvements. My last speech, because I want to let my colleague to share their view, of course, is doing it with our colleagues and with our stakeholder partners, like airlines, like freight forwarders. We try to organize that once a week, depending on the spot. Let's do that all together. Here, your Auditor, Dnata Auditor tool app, you can go do it, and then we review, we debrief together. That's my feedback.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Guillaume.
Chris, if you don't mind, I want to put it a bit black and white. So I think we just explained the importance of it. I'm fully with Guillaume, right? So it is a no-brainer. And we talked about continuous improvement. We talk about the different processes and that everyone should do the same thing. We just came off the topic of GDP and CEVA certification. One of the pitfalls, one of the risks is that we see it as a certification, right? We stick it on the wall and we say, hey, we're good. So I think as a team, as we're all in this same ship, right? It is not about certification. It is about the culture. So in our companies, within our spans of control, right? We, as the leadership in this healthcare challenge, we need to make sure we create the culture that Guillaume just described, right? The culture of, so it doesn't close at 5 o'clock, right? So we need to be proactive. We need to see the change coming. We need to see the issue coming. It's about proactivity. It's about understanding the challenge and then responding to it and making sure we truly implement it in continuous improvement. And that's not just updating the SOP. It is about indeed how we act. It is about how we respond and that's not just the leadership. It's also the people on really in the ground handling agents, people on the floor. So all together, we need to make sure we understand it's a cultural thing. And when we guarantee the culture, when we make sure that in everyone's mind playing a role there's a patient in the end, and it can actually be me if that's needed. I think that's the kind of culture we need to get across the value chain.
Yeah, I totally agree. Very, very well put. Very well put. And Bahadır?
Yeah, I would like to touch upon some trainings Chris, because I know that when it comes to patients' health regulations, vaccines, human beings' health treatment, in order to create the awareness and culture, training is really essential by GDP and CIV. So we shouldn't stop, training the people, and we should continue on focus on the personnel, staff, and we make sure they understand why it is really important and why what they are doing is really important, because there is a patient's health and safety at the end. And when they move the boxes or pallets around in the warehouse, they need to know, there are some medicines, for the kids waiting on the bed in the hospital. So that's why we do our best to train our staff, no matter what function they do, sales, marketing, operational people. We always train them about the pharmaceutical aspects and guidelines. So training is really important. Yeah, I wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And you all mentioned and you've all touched on the culture and issues. Now, like personally, I've got a friend, his name's Rob Williams. I went to visit him at Thermo Fisher. And one of the things I was so impressed with there is they had all of the medicines and all of the vaccines and everything that they dealt with. They actually had the diseases that it was for, so that all of the staff could relate that to a patient or somebody who needed it, and understand that people that they knew, whether it was family members or friends who had experienced the same thing, they were actually helping. And they all came across as people who understood why, and their purpose was to deliver hope. And I just think now, this pandemic, one of the positive things is having guys like you all in the process, all in the same relay team, having the same mindset and pushing that. It's going to make everybody start to realize that not just to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, but why to do it. And once people start to understand that, then people will show a lot more care. And again, I think this pandemic, from all businesses, the one thing that it's taught everybody is how to be, agile, resilient, to understand about continuity and sustainability. So, please God, this is also going to be a positive thing for our industry as well as other industries as we come out of this. Now, Niels, when you sit and talk with the pharma guys, okay, and girls, what obviously that they need to know that you're making the right decisions upstream, downstream, and that you've done all your risk assessment and you've done every bit of the due diligence that's necessary to make sure that who you trust your business with is able to carry it out. What are the biggest features that you're seeing as being positive now within the aviation side of the business?
So there's, I think we've seen the aviation, so the air freight requests really kind of emerge over time, right? So there's this consistent cold chain and non-cold chain part that flies or drives or goes overseas. So one of the key things that I've seen change over the last period of time is that we had a decade where it was about making sure we guarantee the quality, and I think we're there, and I think we all have our quality management systems, and we can still improve, and we should. But I think everyone understands that's not a variable anymore, right? It's a hygiene factor. It's something that's non-negotiable. I think then I've seen a decade of a focus on cost as well. So okay, we have the basic quality management system. We know how to deal with our CAPAs, right? Our corrective and preventive actions, and how to learn how to get in this continuous improvement cycle, and how to address the right leadership and culture. So let's talk about cost, because it is more expensive than ocean freight, for instance. So we've seen, I think, also another decade where we talked with the pharma shippers as well on how to control costs better, right? And how to weave into the forecasting and into the ERPs from them as well to have better forecasting and see what can be cut over to ocean freight or to different modalities. And apart from the recent challenges on COVID, right, that's shaking everything up now, and we need to rejig ourselves, but we will. I think there's more and more, the decade that we just started will be also about the carbon footprint and sustainability as another variable of that as well. So, okay, now we have the non-negotiable part of quality, which is in place, and we need to coordinate across the value chain with all the players that we see here. We have the cost variation much more, and again, it's critical now with the capacity constraints that we see in the market. So you need to still be able to deal with that. But still, I see a very sincere and big change towards making sure that carbon impact is factored in as well. And in a way, is one of the lane assessments, right? It's woven into one of the options as well. So these are the things I've personally seen change over the last couple of decades. And I think it's all good. It's all not just now only for the patient, making sure that we keep the integrity and the control of the product, but also that we make sure that we have a conscious decision on what decisions we take on whether it's ocean freight or air freight.
Yeah, no, very, very good. And Bahadır, you mentioned about training and competence and coaching, and just from your perspective, I just want to ask, how have you seen that improve? Because far too often, whenever anybody goes through certain issues and challenges, one of the first things that gets dropped or reduced is training. And when you're looking at the cost decade that Niels is talking about, there was a lot of focus about reducing training. And then you've got the other costs that are reduced. If all of those areas start getting dumbed down or slowed down, it's very difficult then to start creating, a platform of competence and compliance, which ultimately produces controls. So that training area, how important has that been for you and your organization?
Well, again, it's been very important, and during the pandemic era, it was again more important than ever before. So within our company, including our board of directors and chairmen, since when we were working from home, they wanted to keep us very, very busy about trainings. Okay, so we were working home, and then they assign a lot of trainings to us, employees, staff, personnel. So again, we continue to go through all of the trainings, safety, security, handling pharmaceuticals, active container handling.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how we managed. Yeah.
And
digital, online, yeah.
It's so important to keep that momentum going.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and Guillaume, obviously I know Stuart Angus well, and I know his beliefs in, explaining and how important communication is and the way you communicate. So I know that's been very, very focused now within Dnata, and you've always been working with the One Dnata program prior. How has that reaped benefits for you guys?
I think we got closer together without jeopardizing any important specific local things to be tackled. As you know very well, we've moved from a more head office style down to a regionalization style where we have our regional CEO. We have 4, Dirk Goover, Trust Marino, Yanis Balkens, and David Barker, covering the world for us. And they are on the field with their team. They have capacity to react. They have the decision-making power, and they can react fast. And this has been proven very successful during this difficult pandemic time. Sometimes we listen to each other. We have very good diversity within the team, and this is not easy to blend this. And I have to say, Stuart is doing that very well. Not easy every day. And that brings a very nice perspective. And then, of course, you need to make some decisions. Sometimes it has to be like that, but sometimes you can accept some variation. We've actually produced one very tangible example to your as an answer to your question. We've now produced a DGOM, Dnata Grand Ops Manual, which is all ISEGO, IGOM baseline, SOP work instruction, task compliance checklist, accessible online. there is 80% cover, but you always have 20% specific per country you need to listen to. And I think that's where we now manage and articulate quite well. Last point I will mention on the communication and on the last decade progress, digitalization. I think we all speak a lot about that, and we've spoken a lot about that. Some companies have done great things. We Dnata try, but I have to say, in this COVID situation, this has accelerated everything, and that is helping us a lot to increase our data checkpoints. And now connecting back to the pharmaceutical topic, you think about GDP, QA, training, anything. If you can have more data and you use the data well, that also brings another level of competence.
Yeah, no, data is a very valuable currency. Huh? It's the new gold and the new oil if it's used properly.
Can I ask a question, Chris? Maybe it's to Guillaume and to A.Bahadır.
Yep.
Okay, so because before we go off this topic, right? So I'm totally with you about here as well, on the importance of training, right? The people on the floor, all levels, that we all are understanding what we need to do. But really, then what, right? So people are trained. So how do we, again, in the leadership roles that we have, right? How do you guys do that? It's so important that we lead by example, right? That we indeed bring, maybe sometimes what we do as well, bringing patients to the work floor, right? Indeed, having them tell the story about how important it is and how critical to have the medicines in time. And again, that creates an awareness, and not just with the people handling the pallets, right? It's also with the senior leadership. So,
exactly.
So, and I think that's really critical for success, right? That we have people acting not just upon the procedure, because also acting up their gut feel, that they say, hey, this might go wrong. I probably need to report it. Or there is a near miss or a near accident, right? And instead of, let's not report it because I might get fired, right? So bring it up and have the confidence in the organization that you all learn to get better. So what's your view on that? How can we as partners in the chain, right, maybe between ourselves as well, do a better job in making sure that we it's a safe place to work, right? And people are working on improvements.
Yeah.
Any views you have?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Sure.
Will do then.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I 100% agree with that, Niels.
Yeah.
Okay, because for far too often, people at the top, they know what they want all the way down, but invariably they don't verify that it's being done. So they validate what they want, but they don't verify that it's in place. People at the bottom, especially it's a wrong term, on the ground, they know more of what's going on than anybody else above them. So all this 22,000 feet helicopter viewpoint, if people don't have feet on ground and intermix with their employees, there's going to be a huge gap. The other thing is, for a just culture to exist, people have got to go out of their way to show it and to prove it. And I think now, especially now, you've got such an area of leadership that needs to be modified. So it's almost like putting a new chapter in the SMS manual under human factors. People have to be aware now of anxieties, mental stress, whether people are worried about what's happening with the childminder or their husband or their wife when they're at work. How do people talk to them? What pressures, monetary pressures, whatever it is. People have got to now start to do it in a different way. And I think this sort of storyline, you know, a day in the life of a special piece of cargo, to make people understand why, and an acronym I use for why is what helps you. As children, we always ask why, and as parents, we knock it out of the children. And then people don't want to do it as they get into adulthood. It's a shame, because if you keep asking why and you understand, then you appreciate what needs to be done. So I think there's a huge opportunity for a different type of leadership capability, leadership competence, leadership compliance, leadership control, and leadership clarity. And to do that, I think there has to be training for people who are put in the leadership role, but there has to be even more different, I don't mean more by weeks and weeks, but there has to be more focus on the people to understand why it's important to be led and what it means to the leaders who have to take the responsibility. And then I think some of the clarity will start to come.
I agree, Chris. Just adding to this, because Niels' question is really spot on. I think giving the capability to all the stakeholders, of course, our people, but also our customer, to raise their voice in a very transparent, genuine way. Do they have the capability to see the real level of performance? Do we share transparently what we do, what we fail, and how we progress out of this? This is everything we try to do, and I think everyone today speak about visibility, data sharing, transparency. Not easy with security rules, privacy rules, everything. And I think this is at the heart of the challenge we are discussing today, and that's one of the solutions. It helps everyone to speak up, to report anonymously if they want, and that's definitely gear up the cultural aspect that Niels highlighted. And last point on training, because this is something we really focus on. There is training and training in my view, humbly. There is a regulatory training, which I think needs to be reviewed, and there is a competence. And how much do we focus on competencies? And I think that's for us a key question. And how we help our people to succeed on the competence side. And I think that's something we look at carefully, and we should look at more.
Yep, 100%. I think that's where the big returns are going to be if we look at it from a different perspective of competence.
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing. It's not very long, but back to Niels' question, auditing is another essential part of the pharma chain. You know, for example, close the gaps between pharma companies and freight forwarders. And if they have different views of doing business, and if we have, as an airline, as a carrier, having different views of business, we always encourage pharma companies and freight forwarders, you know, top 10, 20, it doesn't matter, you know, like CEVA, please come to Istanbul, audit us, tell us what we are doing wrong, and please give a chance. I'm not just saying this for advertisement or commercial. Okay, Chris, it's the truth, you know. Please come to Istanbul, audit us, and tell us what we are doing wrong. And this is how we close the gap between pharma companies and their requirements and their desire and us. So it's really important to have auditing procedure.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Yep. And it's about that competence and willingness to want to improve. Exactly, willingness. Continually endorse. Yeah, I think that's, and I don't know why so many people, you know, I've been involved in IOSA audits and God knows how many audits, and you can tell the different cultures. But the sad thing is the employees know whether or not their senior managers believe in it or not. And that's the biggest thing. They know. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That's so indeed every audit is an opportunity to get better. Yep. So and it's not just on the SOPs, and I see that change. So I'm curious if you see that change as well. And again, it's moving maybe up in the hierarchy as well. So yes, it's not that more detailed checking on what SOPs are and work instructions and quality manuals are in place. It is indeed also looking at the organizational part of it. So do you actually, how do you make sure you deliver the promise, and how do you learn? So it's becoming a bit more holistic as well, these audits on with those kind of questions. So how do you organizationally assure quality? And it's not just a department, and it's not just summary of function, it's not an audit, it's more than that. So, and I think indeed that's where we need to go. Next step maybe indeed, how do we guarantee that quality? How do we guarantee that continuous improvement as maybe three of us, right, in a row? So the ground handler, the air carrier, and the forwarder as well. So I think there's that's our next decade.
Yeah, 100%, and it'll be a decade that's well worth focusing on. But the one good thing is, I think everything that's happened in this particular year, there's been so much movement, so much coming together. it's almost been like a decade in 1 year. Definitely feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, and to Guillaume's earlier point, so the thing that really knits it together is the visibility, it's the data, it's the data strategies as well that will knit it together. And I think that's going to help us and enable from really the API to the shipper to the final patient to have that full end-to-end visibility.
Yeah, no, I think it's hugely important. Now, gents, we're getting close to the end, but what I just want to ask as well is one of the things that people are talking about now. So you had the terms, the new normal, and then everybody's fed up of that. Now you're hearing task force. There's a task force everywhere: carriers, governments, airports, GHAs, regulators, integrators, charter brokers, LCCs, private aviation, last mile, first mile, temporary, secondary storage. Task forces everywhere. Okay. Now, yes, we all have to come together, but there has to be like a credible and a coordinated coming together. Now, how are you guys involved in task forces?
I can jump. I mean, I'm personally not joining task forces too much, because this is down to airport level, and we see our local community people doing that. So we have 4 regions. Among the regions, various countries, and among the country, I have to list Brussels, Amsterdam, London, I mean UK, the big market. Of course, in the USA, Dallas, in Singapore as well, which give us a fantastic opportunity to understand what is being discussed across the world with the local challenge and the global kind of similitudes. We are collecting that with Teams, with Zoom. I don't want to support one or the others, but with the digitalization nowadays, we can share, connect, and from here, then we can make decision, and that's happening quite well, I have to say. One thing that I'm doing from a bigger picture viewpoint is we recently joined Pharma Aero Association, and we and together with Dirk Gouvert from Asia Pacific, we are sitting there. Very good panel, very good association, where we go a bit beyond. I mean, we spoke about CEVA, the challenge, the CEVA 2.0. We speak about last miles, drones. I mean, it's active and also connected to the reality, which I like. Also voicing up the shipper's requirement, which is good. So that's what we do. I don't want to take too much of the time for that.
Very good. No, fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, so yeah, we also have an internal task force, and I think it's important. We indeed also call it task force across CMA and CEVA, so our mother company, CMA CGM, because we see that we're not new to shipping cold chain, right? That's what we do since a long time, whether it's ocean or air freight. But there's so many things that indeed are now comprised, to your point, Chris. So there's 10 years in 8 months, right? There's different brokerage processes that we expect. There's now the demand or the capacity crush in the market. So it's totally different pricing that we need to get our head around. There's a scarcity of reefers, right? It's on the ocean side. But how do we deal with the vaccine producers? How can we help them best? With the accessorial providers, right, which are equally important, and also the CMO, the contract manufacturers, and dealing then as well with the different stakeholders, whether it's a country or whether it's a UNICEF, right? We're dealing with developed worlds and developing economies as well. There's a lot to coordinate internally as well. So we just want to make sure it's effective and efficient, and that's why we have kind of aligned ourselves and given this priority. Our CEO, he's the chair as well of this task force, to just make sure we do the right things. We're all on the same page, and we all understand, to your point, why we're doing things and why we probably need to prioritize some freight over some other freight, right? So that is really important, that we have guidelines, that we all understand why we do things.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of us are in different sized boats and ships, but everybody's sailing through the same storm.
Yes, Chris, we did the same thing within our company. We created one COVID-19 vaccine working group. And nowadays, we are getting together very often, because the vaccine will be coming up very soon at the end of this year or Q1 2021. So we all want to get prepared for the huge volume or vaccine shipments. So every day we discussed, are we ready? Do we have enough storage capacity? Do we need to rent the active containers for the whole year in 2021? So this is a big challenge for everyone in the supply chain, and we are a part of Pharma.io, Cool Chain Association, as well as IATA task force, and we are trying to gather all of the information from the market, such as volume, manufacturing countries, trade lanes, and what are the exact temperature zones, what is the temperature ratio. So it's not easy to guess what we know some basic information from the market. Yep. So we are getting ready as best as we can. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, gents, we're almost at the end of the session now. So very quickly, if you had the chance to grant something or to wish for something or a magic wand, what would you want to see take place over the next 6 months?
Let me kick it off there. So our people are really at the heart of what we do, right? They make the difference, they make the pallets flow, they do the work. So and the same is probably the case for the Bahadır and for Guillaume as well. And so my magic wand wish would be indeed that we keep the people safe, and not just to keep resilience in all of our operations, to keep it flowing, but also for their personal. We've seen a lot of very sad stories indeed of people passing away. So it's a very personal, and we now talk about it in a very business supply chain way. And again, that's the topic of today. But again, it's for many of us, it's a personal drama as well. So my wish and want would be for all of us to stay safe until we have this solution by the vaccine in place.
Yeah, very good, Niels. And Bahadır?
Yeah, I agree with Niels. The safety and health is the most important thing for nowadays. Business can continue on. So again, please take good care of yourself. And one, not wish, but I am seeking one support from the government and authorities about the financial thing, because the whole air cargo and airline industry is really facing a lot of financial issues. So if we have the power and support, we can accomplish anything. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And
thank you,
Guillaume. Thank you very much, Bahadır. And Guillaume?
Yeah, I mean, I understood in your question, if we could get the magic things, what could we do? I mean, definitely on the safety aspect, 100%, and we are actively doing it, and we'll not give up on this one. I will say very practically, hopefully government's gonna help us to accelerate the ramp up of the flight again. And there is some decision to be made on some processes we could do instead of things we do today, quarantine and stuff like that. I think that could help us tremendously, actually, to match with the spike in demand.
Yep.
And on the distribution side, because we know how we suffer in terms of belly capacity. We know the gap between export demand and real capacity. You know all of the stats. So yeah, that would be my wish, actually.
Yep. No, there's a lot of lessons learned, and mustn't keep making the same mistakes. So, yeah.
What's your wish, Chris?
My wish is that that people really genuinely care now about their colleagues, about other people, so that in turn everybody can start having a more focused and a more collaborative approach to the way they lead their life. People were chasing too much, not even knowing what they were chasing, in my opinion. And everybody was bottom line, revenue, growth. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's good to be a specialist and do it really well, and not try and be everything to everybody. And I think a lot of cost saving and and sustainability could be achieved by people using partners who are good at what they do. Everybody doesn't need to be a goalkeeper. Everybody doesn't need to be a centre forward. You know, if you select the people that are good in each position within your team and your dynamic, hopefully you'll end up winning more often than you will lose. So
Here, here.
Listen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think anybody that'd be listening, if they've seen the three of you as part of a relay team, they'd be pretty confident that things would be done well. And genuinely appreciate everything that you do, all of your colleagues, your employees and your friends, especially in the front line. It's a huge amount of respect goes out to everybody. And now that people are seeing more about supply chain and logistics, and especially cargo, you know, I think there'll be a lot more respect given to our business and everything that we've put into it over the years. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good
pleasure.
day.
Thanks,
Thank
lads.
you.